Um, Welcome to SAM Conversation, an
That
online
one
program of South Asia Monitor. I'm Colonel Anil Bhat. Our topic today is recent inductions of indigenous light combat helicopter into the Indian Air Force and Indian Army, the induction of advanced light helicopter into the Indian Navy and Indian Coast Guard, and strategic implications. It is my pleasure to welcome Lieutenant General BS Pawar, former Director General Army Aviation,
I'm off.
and Air Vice Marshal Manmohan Bahadur, Additional Director General of the Center for Air Power Studies. It took about 23 years or so for the light combat helicopter to make it seem as an accepted and very capable aircraft. And it took the advanced light helicopter about 18 years at least to reach the same level. They both are performing in all conditions, and they're fulfilling their roles to the best of the reports that we've received so far. The Alouettes and Lama have been in Indian Armed Forces since the early 1960s, which makes them well over 50 years. And one thing which deserves mention for them is that in Siachen in 1983, I think they performed unprecedented feats of flying in high altitudes of over 20,000 feet, and quite unprecedented for this or any other aircraft till then. And the Siachen pioneers, they flew 2 to 3 hours. In 2 to 3 hours, they did 15 to 20 landings per aircraft. It's a pleasure to have both experts on board. I request General Pawar to start with whatever he has to say about these aircraft for the Army.
Thank you, Anil. Let me start with this, that the Cheetah Chetak, which are going to reach their end of their technical life next year, have been the backbone of the Indian Army, be it Siachen, be it any of the high altitudes.
No,
and I was lucky enough to be there in the Army Aviation or Air those days when these cheetahs were inducted. They were very powerful, an excellent aircraft for high altitude. You could land on a matchbox and you could climb to up to 23,000 feet those days. But suffices to say that today they are vintage. Their operations are curtailed by the maintenance difficulties. And it's time, when you say reaching technical life by end of next year, it's high time this aircraft should have gone. We are aware 3 trials were carried out over a period of last 1 decade or more. But unfortunately, none of those trials led to a culmination, and we are still saddled with these aircraft. More on that later. What I want to first highlight here is it's a red letter day, or rather a lovely time for the Indian Armed Forces with the induction of the light combat helicopter. It's a helicopter which has been there in the making. Its need was felt after the Kargil war, because none of our helicopters were able to operate this class, the attack helicopters. Cheetahs did operate. They were a big help. They were the lifeline for the casualties to be evacuated. But an attack helicopter of a caliber like the LCH was not available. Today we have that. It's an indigenous development, which we should be proud of. There are problems which I'll cover subsequently in the LCH itself as to what an attack helicopter should have and what LCH has. We also have the Rudra. Before I finish, we also have the Rudra, which is the armed ALH, which has been already in service and is being operated by both Air Force and Army. More on it later.
Thank you, Gen Pawar. Very well begun. Air Vice Marshal Manmohan Bahadur, I am really looking forward to getting inputs and comments from you, because this those of us who've been following the growth of the rotary wing in the armed forces, particularly the Air Force. They're the senior service as far as flying is concerned. Please.
Thank you, sir, for calling me over. First of all, sir, I am a former ADG of CAPS, Center for Air Power Studies. Right now, I am an honorary distinguished fellow with Center for Air Power Studies. Having said that, the LCH has been long in coming. And as General Pawar said, that the need was felt after Kargil. During Kargil, we had sent our Mi-17s, armed with rockets. And there was a problem in their performing at those altitudes. And we lost one Mi-17 with 4 crew. And after that, they were stopped they were not sent in for armed role. Thereafter, we did trials with a Mi-35 stripped down so as to reduce the weight. Because the attack helicopter that we had, the Mi-35, was armor plated and ideal for those conditions, but it was heavy. So to reduce the weight, a lot of things unnecessary for such missions were removed, and an attempt was made to fly it at those altitudes, but that too did not succeed. And hence was born the idea of the LCH, the Light Combat Helicopter, and to be developed from the Advanced Light Helicopter, or the Dhruv. The advantage of taking off from the ALH, this LCH project, was because the transmission, the rotors, main and the tail rotor, the transmission system, the gearbox, and the engine are the same. So the basic power elements are the same. The HAL has streamlined it into a tandem cockpit, the pilot in front, the weapons operator at the rear, and hence the basic weight reduces, whereas the performance as far as the rotor is concerned remains the same. Now, the advantage of the LCH, and it has shown in its trials at the glacier, that it can fly and land at 15,000 feet and above, actually. And more importantly, it can deliver armament above 15,000 feet. No helicopter in the world can do this, delivering armament above 15,000 feet and actually landing also at certain places. So that's the type of machine that we were looking for. Now, having said that, I must add a caveat here that because of the slow speed of the helicopters, they are very vulnerable to small arms fire as well as to surface-to-air missiles. So when we use the LCH, especially in the hills, because if the aircraft is flying in the valleys and the hills above, the chances of you getting shot down with a surface-to-air missile fired from above you is much more. And that's exactly what happened to the Russians in Afghanistan, where they lost a lot of Mi-35s. So while it has the capability, the usage has to be well thought of. Where will you use it? How will you use it? And with what, as part of what mission? you have sent in suppression missions with the fighters, or something else has to be well thought of. The other issue of the alouettes and the cheetahs. I grew up on the Chetaks, and thereafter, I actually went on the glacier in 1978 with Colonel Bull Kumar's first expedition. And actually, the first landing was done in 1978. It was, I think, the 6th of October 1978, 6 years before Meghdoot started. So that's the history behind the cheetah. And then we, of course, got on to the cheetah. The cheetah, I can swear by it. Let's put it simply. It really performs, especially now the cheetahs with the ALH engine, which is called the Cheetah, which is flying on the glacier with 114 helicopter unit. And the Army Aviation has also ordered some. I do not know whether they have been delivered, but some time back I know that they had been ordered. So these are the two important things which have happened. And we can take it on from here.
Thank you, Marshal Manmohan Bahadur. What I was quite shocked about the alouettes is that the Indian Navy has been using them till date, has been using them over the sea without emergency flying gear. Anyway, as one mentioned, this is one aircraft which is well over 50 years old. And as Gen Pawar also mentioned, it should be on its way out. It's a fantastic aircraft. One has had, the pleasure of sitting into it and sitting in it and flying over the glacier, where with and looking at the rear of the aviator's helmet, where it says birds are jealous, because birds don't ever get to that height. And I have had the occasion of at least 5 times during Defense Expo exhibitions and Aero India of conveying to seniors in the Russian arms industry that you need to, commend Indian aviators, Indian Armed Forces aviators, for testing the capability of your product far, far beyond parameters. Altitude, weather conditions. Let's not mention the time that for which we have, the amount of time for which we've used them. Anyway, but I think what now we'd like to hear from both is that both the light combat helicopter and the advanced light helicopter, the good news about them is that they're fairly indigenous, and there's been they've been produced with a fair amount of participation of Indian industry for a change. On this, please.
Can I start?
Please.
Anil, the Indian Army is operating 20 Cheetahs. What he brought out with a more powerful engine, improved transmission to take on that power. They're now, in fact, I learned from the directorate itself that the 20 Cheetahs that the Indian Army has, they plan to position all of them in Leh and take off the Cheetahs and put them in the eastern sector and northeastern sector. I think that's a very good move, because Cheetahs have a more powerful engine and they should be able to perform better in Siachen. Having said that, ALH was inducted somewhere in 2000, 2001 into the Indian Army was the first to induct it.
Yes.
Any new aircraft that is inducted, it takes about 3 to 4 years to stabilize. Because I took over ADG after that, maybe after 2 years of his induction, and the first flight, it is a problem. We had to position HAL at Nasik, a full-fledged team, because every day there was a new problem. So any helicopter, for example, even LCH now, once they get inducted and start operating, there's a period of stabilization in the world over. It's not only in India. And in our case, we are going to operate them at high altitudes. The problem gets more complex. As far as the Indian Army is concerned, we are looking, because there is no replacement in sight for Chetak and Cheetah. I've flown both, like Manmohan. And of course, Cheetah was in its own time, when it was about 20 to 30 years old aircraft, it performed excellently. It is performing even today, but it has limitations. There is a school of thought that look at the ALH for replacing at least the Chetaks. The Indian Army is operating almost 190 Chetaks and Cheetahs, which is a large component of this class of helicopters. And I have always been an advocate. When you want a helicopter for surveillance, it has to be in the class of 2.5 to 3 ton. You can't have an ALH and call it a surveillance helicopter. Some people have advocated that. No, why don't you use the ALH? I am a strong advocate, and I will keep saying that surveillance job is totally different. When you perform surveillance, you should be having visibility to that effect. And this aircraft requirements are totally different from a light ALH, advanced light helicopter. Having said that, so we are stuck with it. The LUH, light utility helicopter with the HAL, the way things stand, what I've been reading and what I've heard, its induction is not going to be before end of next year. The LUH, the induction starting, it has some issues, which the Army has pointed out. With the result, even if the HAL does 20 aircraft per year, they are supposed to give 187, in which 111 are for the Army, and I think balance 70 something is for the Air Force. Even if they go for 20 per year, which is a very optimistic, looking at a very optimistic view, it'll take anything about 8 years, 9 years, which means your Chetak will have to continue, especially Cheetah. You may be able to replace this with ALH, the Chetaks. As it says, they don't fly high altitude, but your Cheetah will have to continue, and that is one of the major tasks. As far as the LCH and Rudra are concerned, we have, yes, it is an indigenous. I am proud of it that this country has produced. Today, the ALH itself has 52% indigenous content, 52% ALH. There are a lot of things which come from outside. But the biggest flaw in the LCH is the weapon system's non-availability. Anil, I'm surprised and shocked. Even the Rudra, we do not have an anti-tank missile with us today. And it is nowhere in sight for the next 3 years. And I'll tell you why. I wanted to cover this point because this is very, very important. You basically be flying a LCH with rockets and machine gun, which the Mi-17 has, which the Cheetahs, which were converted into armed, called Lancers, have. So basically, what does it become? A gunship? It's an armed helicopter. Attack helicopter without the anti-tank missile. I'm not talking of air-to-air. Leave the air-to-air aside. Anti-tank missile, I can't call it I can't compare it with any other attack helicopter in the world. And from what I hear, the Helena Army has done about 5 firings. They have been successful. The firings have been successful, but they are in a stand-alone mode from an ALH or Rudra. What I heard the HL has said that the integration and man-machine interface will take anything up to 30 months minimum. This is what they are saying. And seeing the way the things are, please take it next 3 to 4 years. This attack helicopter, so-called attack helicopter, will not have an anti-tank missile, which is called a Helena, which is a cause for concern and worry. So while we are very proud, we flout that we have an attack helicopter and an armed helicopter, the Rudra, we don't have the weapon systems which need to be put on it. I did a comparison sometime back with the Turkish A129 and the attack. Those helicopters may have a little failing as far as the altitude is concerned, but they have the weapon systems which are required. Both the Z-10 of China and the A129 of Turkey. In fact, Pakistan has evaluated both and was planning to buy 30 of these Turkish attack helicopters, but the engine problem now, the sanctions imposed by the Western nations stopped that. So I'll stop here and let Manmohan take it.
Thank you, Gen Pawar. Manmohan, I'm looking forward to more comments from you on the LCH, ALH, and any other. Before we wind up, thank you.
It's like this. We have to see the bigger picture, and I've actually written about it, which is to say, and don't mind my saying so, we have, shall I say, a dirty habit of blowing our trumpet before the fruit is ripe. So while all this talk of Atmanirbharta is good, and we must be self-sufficient, we have to be truthful to ourselves as uniform people about how much and how quickly is it feasible to become self-sufficient. One cannot be self-sufficient in every aspect of a flying machine. By that I mean, like for example, the engine is made by 5 or 6 countries in the world, a fighter engine, for example. And helicopter engine, maybe 3, 4 more. But the amount of investment that needs to go in, vis-a-vis our orders, like General Pawar said, 200 roughly, and you add a few more, of that class, you will just be shelling out money, setting up the investment, setting up machinery, tools, jigs, etc. And if your orders are only 200, it doesn't make sense. That's where diplomacy comes in to ensure, like the C-70, like the C-130, which we have got. It's an American aircraft, but the engines are Rolls-Royce. So other than the French, who have literally all parts of their aircraft, including armament, indigenous, I don't think there is any other country, maybe the Americans, in certain cases, which have indigenous content. That is one part. Secondly, as once again, General Pawar brought out about the ATGM part, that's where it comes in. If it's going to take 3 years plus, if HAL says 30 months, I have been in AST, our testing establishment, and dealt with HAL in very many roles. The work culture is such that 30 months means 2.5 years, means take it 5 years. Let's put it bluntly. So that's the issue. I hope things have changed. I believe things have changed a little bit. We need to step on the pedal to ensure that what our manufacturing industry, and we have only one, that is HAL, and our R&D institutions like DRDO, ADA, the Helicopter Design Bureau, and the others which are there, ADE, they perform what they say that they will deliver, and they need to be held accountable. Otherwise, it's a lot of hot air and a lot of PR that happens, and the gullible people, general public, gets taken in by it. So it is here, if I can just use the last thing, I don't mind following your adversary. We must not mind if the guy is good. Deng Xiaoping, what did he say? Hide your capability, bide your time. So let's get our capabilities up, and thereafter, let's blow our trumpet.
Thank you very much, Vice Marshal Manmohan Bahadur, for your, very, very, in-depth and very important observations. We are a country which is, for the Western world, mountains meant 8,000. In 1947, we redefined mountain warfare by fighting on, Haji Pir, 12,000, 14,000, we took tanks there. Little later, we've gone on, we are one of the countries who are flying aircraft at the altitudes that we are, well over 20,000. And we have a threat of two enemies, enemies. I have no compunctions about referring to China and Pakistan as enemy nations. With all that you gentlemen have brought out, there's still a lot of ground to be covered. Very good that we have, put into effect indigenization, and we've begun a very important chapter of self-reliance. But that self-reliance is not complete, particularly when you say that with the light combat helicopter not having anti-tank capability, anti-tank guided missiles not yet being mated to it. It's a very major thing, because each tank has an ACAC machine gun which can fire at you. It shouldn't be that way around only. Anyway, there's a lot more that we can discuss at another on another occasion. But I thank you, gentlemen, for bringing out some very important and very in-depth points. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you very much. Manmohan, thank you so much.